Welcome to Sales is Not a Dirty Word, the podcast that shows you how to convert 8 out of 10 sales conversations without acting like a douchebag. I'm your host, innovative sales coach Aleasha Bahr, the creator of the Black Sheep Sales Method. Because if it's a fit, it's a fact, and there's no selling involved. If you're a service provider selling your own service who's ready to sell differently than the mainstream status quo and win more sales without pressure, pitching, or pretending to be someone else, then this is for you. If you want to know more about the Black Sheep Sales Method, then go to aleashabahr.com. So today's episode is about winning those big contracts. And big contracts are relative, right? So, for example, one of my clients was freaking out because she'd only sold $1,500 a month contracts. And she was talking to somebody about selling them a $3,000 a month contract. And that person worked with people that they had $10,000 a month contracts. And she was like, I just don't know if I can even, help this person or qualify for this person, right? And I was in corporate sales for a long time. I was a digital specialist for a newspaper. So if you know anything about newspapers, they have really powerful digital assets, right? They have a lot of website traffic, they've got emails, they've got a lot going on. So we would work with really big clients. I easily sold $100,000 contracts, $500,000 contracts. My last contract as I left there wasn't a $1 million contract for digital advertising for one of the really big furniture stores here in Colorado. And so it's funny because if you've never sold anything that big, it might be scary. And it's really a mindset shift is what the issue is. So there's 4 things that are really going to help you shift and empower you to be able to sell those big contracts no matter what that means to you, right? Whatever a big contract, quote unquote, is in your world. So the first thing is what's a lot of money to you isn't a lot of money to someone else, right? Especially if you're in B2B, because businesses have budgets that are different from like my personal savings account, right? They have budgets set aside for that business growth. And they're a lot bigger, especially if they have really high ticket things that they sell, really high priced services or products or whatever. So, for example, my husband sells air compressors. They're really big machines that help oil drills pump power their oil drills basically. They help breweries make their beer. They help manufacturing facilities create glass bottles. It's like actually a utility. It's like water or electricity or something, compressed air. And so these machines are really expensive, right? They're like starting at $100,000 all the way up to $1 million machine. But what they're creating for, let's say, an oil rig is a lot more than that. And if they don't have that machine, they're going to be losing a lot of money, like $1 million an hour or some crazy number, right? So it's really understanding the person you're talking to. I saw this great article the other day in what money is relative to us for a billionaire. So for a billionaire, a $25,000 first class airplane ticket to an international destination is like $500 for the average American, right? And for somebody at a lower poverty level, $500 might feel like $10,000 for that middle class American, right? So understanding that a lot of money isn't the same to the client you're talking to if you're talking to the right client, right? And it is very much the second point is you have to talk to the right people in order to sell big contracts. You do not want to convince somebody who needs to like go broke or something to buy your offer. And it can be really discouraging if you're selling to people who are like, you're too expensive. You start to think there's something wrong with me. And it's really that you're just talking to the wrong audience, right? And it's very easy to justify when somebody has really high ticket services. So if somebody's selling in the example of my client, $10,000 a month contracts, then $3,000 a month for everything is not a lot, right? So it's really about putting it, this is the third point, in perspective for the client. So once you know that they sell something that absolutely justifies the investment because they'll get a return, then it's really just a matter of putting it in perspective for them. What does it look like if there's not an investment in this? And what does it look like if there is an investment in this? Just like my husband and his air compressors. What if you don't have the right machine because you went cheap? What does that look like? It looks like loss of multiple millions of dollars, right? So, understanding, you really need to understand who is a fit for your offer, like one of my greatest hits, right? It's what I'm always singing about here. And that includes they need to sell something that's at a certain price point in order to be a fit for your services. And you just don't talk to people who don't sell that. You don't talk to people who don't make a certain amount of income or whatever. It's like Bentley's not talking to everybody, right? They're only advertising to a choice few because they know who's a fit. They have the criteria for who's a fit and who's not a fit. So, and then you can put it in perspective for them by doing discovery, right? You need to understand what this means to them, what the context of their situation is, what things look like if they have these things in place, what it looks like if they don't have these things in place, and really talk through that with them to make sure that it does make sense for them. In the case of my $1 million contract with the big furniture company, like that was a fraction of their budget, right? A fraction of their advertising budget. And I mean, it was a big win for us. It was the most that we'd ever sold to them before. But looking at their whole budget, it wasn't a really scary amount for them because in their perspective, in their context, they're making so much more than that. Like so much more than that. And $1 million would create so much more revenue than they spent, right? Than the investment, which is the whole point. So the last thing, the fourth thing, is really about shifting your mindset around whether you can help somebody who appears to be farther along than you. So you might think, oh, this company, is at 25 million a year and I'm just a little peon. Like, how can I help this company? You can help anyone if you solve a problem they have. That's all that matters. And a lot of times you can do it way better than some bloated company that has a bunch of red tape. I had my own marketing agency for 4 years, and absolutely one of my main differentiators was I am nimble. I am accustomed to, I'm nimble, I can get in there, I'm flexible, right? I'm not some big company that's going to have a bunch of red tape and all of these inflated charges because I just have like a bunch of staff or something. So I was able to work with a company that was making 10 million a year, selling little promotional items like swag and stuff, but they had no idea about anything that had to do with marketing. They only knew about manufacturing. So I was a huge asset to them. That was like a $5,000 a month contract. And it was like, it made a massive difference for them. So just because a company is good at making money doing one thing does not mean that they don't need help with anything else. I've never met a company who didn't have problems, unfortunately. Hopefully, I can be the first eventually one day, not today. But everybody has something that they need help with. And if you're an expert who can do that, then do not be intimidated by the fact that they just simply make more money than you. They're just farther along than you. They just have a different perspective or reality or context than you. And understand that you're talking to them about something that relative to you is like $500, right? Put it in perspective for yourself, whatever's going to take the apprehension out of that conversation, because they can feel that. If you feel like, oh my God, this is so expensive, then they're going to be like, it's so expensive, right? They're going to not want to go with you like, oh, this is the biggest contract that they've ever done. I don't think this is the right partner for us, right? And another thing that a lot of people do is they'll throw in all of this stuff because it's the biggest contract that they've ever landed, and then they're just completely at capacity. And one situation that is dangerous every single time is having like one or two whale clients that your income depends on. And if one or two of those whale clients goes, your income is cut in half or cut completely, and you have no sales pipeline because all of your energy and attention was going to these massive whale clients. So you never want to put together a contract with a big enough price tag that you feel obligated to include all this extra stuff. For it to be a good fit, they need to not need all of that extra stuff and pay the higher price tag. The only thing that matters is that they get a result, right? Do not handcuff yourself to a client because some money is not better than no money, right? You don't want to be like, oh my gosh, it's the biggest contract I've ever had, so I'm going to sell my soul for it because I've never sold anything this high. And so that feels like the only way that I'm going to feel in integrity doing this, because the other person doesn't feel like that at all. That's your own mind stuff. The other person doesn't need all that extra stuff. And if they do, then they're not an ideal client. You do not want a demanding, needy client who's going to suck all of your time away and expect you to be at their beck and call. I promise it will cost you more money in the long run because all of your time and attention will be spent on this person and you'll ignore everybody else and you won't have a sales pipeline. So it doesn't matter how big they are. It doesn't matter how big the contract is. It should be relative to the person that you are pitching to, and you want to put it in perspective for them. And that is how you sell a really big contract. And it doesn't matter how far along they are, as long as you are able to communicate the value of what you do and it solves a need that they actually have, then you can work with whoever you want. You can work with Google. It doesn't matter. Really doesn't. All you need to know is that you get somebody a result and that confidence translates. And a lot of times it's the language you're using to explain it that helps you with that confidence, which is something that I do. So I will help you articulate how you do what you do for who you do it for in a way that makes them want to buy it. And this is very different, apparently, from most sales experts. They don't help you with how to explain what you do. And that's like the hardest part for most people. And then how to navigate a conversation and answer certain questions and certain objections that are specific to you and your audience. So that's something that's really different about me is I understand what you do inside and out, and then I put together something custom for you so that you're really confident and compelling whenever you have these conversations, and it's easy for you to land really large contracts. I mean, one of my clients who's a podcasting agency just landed his biggest contract. It's $15,000 and it's with a client he's been talking to for years. And it's because he finally had the right questions and the right words that helped that client feel really clear and comfortable and confident in what they were getting with him. So most of the time, if you don't have that language, somebody's just confused and they're just unclear. And so they don't buy. A confused mind says no. So if that's something that you want help with, please book a sales level up call. It's in the show notes. If you can help me get this visible, this message that is different from mainstream sales in front of more people, I would really appreciate it because I cannot get in front of as many eyes as I would like. And so people are continuously getting burned and feeling pressured to sell in this douchebaggy way. So please rate, review, share. I appreciate you. Every single pair of ears, every single minute that you give me. I know time is precious. So thank you for listening, and I will see you next time.